Hello. Hello, everybody. It's 1:48 p.m. Central Time on the 22nd of January, 2026. And hope you're doing well. Getting on to do an update for everybody, let you know where we stand on seismic and to check off the locations that have been struck. Multiple locations have been hit since we saw the earthquake down in Southern California, 4.9 earthquake down in Southern California. And that 4.9 was forecast to occur after the 6 that struck off the coast at the start of this past week. So going back in time, we had a 6.0 earthquake at the start of the week up off the coast of the Pacific Northwest, prompting me to issue a warning for 5.0, 4.9, somewhere in that range, to strike Southern California right here, 20 miles away from where the actual earthquake struck. When that earthquake struck, I made a video and showed everybody what we were going to expect next across the rest of the plate. And now all the locations have been hit, every single one, plus an additional. So if you're not aware, first of all, a 4.0 range earthquake, USGS 3.8, struck on the New Madrid seismic zone, north side of the New Madrid, right where it meets into the Wabash Valley seismic zone. I felt my first earthquake in my life, I'm 49 years old, on this 4.0. So check that one off the list. Also, South Carolina and the Vermont, New Hampshire, southeast Quebec border region all struck, as well as Maine. Those were all the warned locations in the United States, and they've all been hit by the expected earthquake and within about a magnitude of what we were looking. Now, today's new development, two different earthquakes, two different fours. One struck at North Utah, right at the South Wyoming border. It's actually listed out of Wyoming, even though it's in Utah. And another 4 struck back on the Gorda Escarpment out off the coast of Eureka. If you caught my update just a couple days back, we were talking about where we were going to watch in California. Well, check it out. Look where it got hit, guys. Right up next to Eureka. Now, the oddball out on this quake here is the one up in Utah. And that's actually, if you go look it up, it's a few miles away from a large oil and gas pumping operation. Same goes for the one in Illinois. So which one do we want to look up first? I guess we'll go look up the earthquake in Illinois first, because this is the more rare earthquake. It's the one that I felt. Again, I had never felt an earthquake in my entire life. So to feel this one at 1 in the morning, we were having a dance party on the live stream, playing 80s and 90s music. And then my desk starts swaying and the lamp starts shaking, and that was wild. Again, now I'm finally check it off the list of my bucket list of things to do is to feel an earthquake. Well, there it is. But let's go put the coordinates in and go show you what's there, because it took a minute of me scouring around to try and find it. It's within 6 to 10 miles, as we normally look. Check it out. Old drill points from the 1970s and new drill points that are still functional as of today. Multiple oil and gas wells here. Looks like they're doing fracking, but they're getting oil instead of gas. So we have our tanks and our pumps and our jacks and our pipelines, and the jacks are down at the ends of these little roads, the oil well, again, famous jack shape there, the pump. And there's so many here. There's at least 50 different drill points along this spot alone, going up to the north and over to the east. And I marked a few of them. Again, we've got another one right here at this juncture just a few feet away. We can get a side view on the well to actually see what the jack or pump looks like there. It's kind of out in the distance here in the middle of this field, just one example of many. So oil is there at the Illinois earthquake location. Drill points, man-made drill points. That's why the waves sought out this location as opposed to maybe going a dozen miles south or east or west, that it chose right next to the drill points. The seismic wave finds a path of least resistance to the spots that are the weakest, and in this case, drill points. Now, I mentioned South Carolina and the Quebec border area were also struck. These were warned spots. So let's go look in South Carolina and see what's down here. Now, I already looked it up, I already know, but we'll just zoom in and show you the large military base. This is next to Fort Jackson. It's the Army training range, but it's not blasts that are happening here. Here's Fort Jackson. Here's the military base. It comes around to all their shooting ranges, training ranges. There's A1 Abrams, M1A1 Abrams tanks here and the whole bit. But again, this is not a blast. This is down in the plate, down below the Army base. Okay, so check that one off the list. And then the same sized earthquake, 2.7 to 2.8, struck up at the border of Canada, Quebec, right at the Vermont and New Hampshire border. And again, if you caught my update, you heard me cracking the jokes on Vermont and New Hampshire. I was trying, Vermont, New Hampshire. Okay, I was cracking those jokes, those kind of jokes, Serena. Okay, sorry, guys. Again, I got a lot of friends up in the Northeast. You guys are all, love you guys all. But look where we are. Again, here's Vermont, New Hampshire. Here's Southeast Quebec. Here's Ontario, Quebec area. Okay. And there it is. So significant size earthquake striking next to what we have drill point for a stratigraphic test site from 1992. I've got that marked. I, again, try to get as much information as I can on a location. That's far enough away that I wouldn't think it's related directly, but we're on the edge of the North American craton for this earthquake up here. So 2.7 to 2.8 down at the military base, 2.7 to 2.8 up here in the Northeast on the edge of the craton, 4.0, 3.8 at the drill points in Illinois. Now, we can go down to the south. We have a 1.8 right next to the town of New Madrid itself. So see where it says Lilburn, Missouri. Well, really, I mean, they could just say New Madrid because the town of New Madrid is literally right next to it. And it is Madrid. It's not Madrid. You can check with the locals. I'm from Missouri. Okay, there's the earthquake epicenter, and here is the town of New Madrid. Now, Lilburn is right next to it, so you get that. And then right down here is the New Madrid Public High School. You see that? But I'm more interested in the Mounds Park Cemetery that's at this location. This is a spot that you have to know about. They took the place mark off of Google. They literally removed the place mark. See, it's gone. Longtime viewers knew or know that it used to be marked. But somebody requested to have this moved or removed from Google, the name on there. Now, the reason, I think, is because of the controversy that at the Mounds Park Cemetery here, make sure you guys can see this, Mounds Park Cemetery is built next to the Native American mound. The Native American mound is built next to where they have the water source. And the graveyard that's there now is from Westerners having their graves there. But they put their graves there because of the mound that's there. And they built the school there because of the mound that's there. And that's why the water is there, because the mound is there. And the earthquakes that strike next to it, I really think are tied to something else entirely, which we would have to go into ancient civilization talk, some weird mystical stuff that I don't really like to get into, but I would have to just quickly show you. Here in the middle of the United States, with St. Louis right here, I just turned this on our facing east, but this 5-sided structure here built into the plate of North America, this is huge. It's 350 miles long. And on the back left side is the New Madrid seismic zone. And on the back right side is the Wabash Valley seismic zone. Also the Native American mounds for the Cahokia Mounds across the river from St. Louis right here. Also the St. Louis Arch is on the back right side of this thing. Now in the center of it is Fort Leonard Wood for the Army, right through the center of here. And then at the tip of it is Muskogee, or Fort Gibson, the other military base. So at the tip of it's a military base, in the middle of it's a military base, and the direct middle of it is Branson, where they flooded the place on purpose. Built the giant dams to flood the very center of this. Back left side, New Madrid, back right side, 2 seismic zones on the back side of this thing. Now to seal the deal that something weird's going on here, on the back right side is St. Louis. And in downtown St. Louis, they're building the new Geospatial Mapping Agency, and I'll show it to you here. There we go. The Geospatial Mapping Agency for mapping the whole world built their new headquarters right here in St. Louis. You see that X right there. Now, what I want to draw your attention to is the street line outline on this. This is the old fort that was here from the 1700s on the map from the French, and this has been lost in history. The old 5-sided bastion fort that was here. I found a map from the 1700s that shows it. It's on my Twitch page if you guys want to go see it. We're not going to waste time showing you old 1700 maps to show you the 5-sided bastion fort here. It is still in the streets, or at least the shape of the streets is laid out around the outside edge of what the old bastion fort was. Now, the Geospatial Agency building their headquarters here in the middle of it is not chance. And out at the very tip of it, just like down at New Madrid, where you have the water tower right next to it, we've got the St. Louis water towers here that are the large standing pipe water towers that there's only a few in the country. And two of them are here. I think there's 4 total. 2 of them are here, 5 of them. And they have the old arrow slits on the side for shooting arrows out of, because that's important. And this one's in the shape of a Corinthian column, which is even more interesting. But this is an ancient 5-sided bastion fort that's here. It's on the maps. Again, like I said, it's not up for debate. It really is there on the old maps, but it's been lost in history. Now, the Geospatial Mapping Agency has to know about it. So why am I taking the time to show that to you? Check it out. Look at this. On the back right side is the one I just showed you, the Geospatial Mapping Agency. But on the back left side is another one. Right here, facing the opposite direction. And it's 6 miles by 9 miles in size. These are foothills, so this is not from farming. This rises up 500 feet. It's 500 feet all the way around, 250 feet, 250. It rises up 250 all the way around out of the plains, and it's 5-sided. This is 6 miles, 6 miles, 9 miles, 9 miles. It's deliberately built that way, but it's made out of foothills now, 200 feet high. And to let you know that something weird's going on, if you zoom in on the tip of this thing, right down here, there's something look. Somebody knows something here. I'm serious now. So it says this carved into the fields. That's not me putting this on here. This is on Google Earth. The imagery date is 2024, right around the time of the election. But this one is a giant ancient bastion fort right next to the town of New Madrid. So there's 2 of them. One on each side of the back side of this thing. This is 350 miles long. This is made of mountains. This is all of Missouri and pointing down to Oklahoma. Now, right down here at the tip of it, let's turn on our borders and labels. Look where we go. We go right into Oklahoma, right where all of our earthquakes strike. Huge earthquake outbreak all the way across because they're fracking and drilling out at the tip of this. Now, on the right-hand side is the city of Columbia, Missouri. And on the left-hand side is Little Rock, Arkansas. So city here, here, here. Oh, and Tulsa's up here at the front right of this thing. So cities on all sides of it. Military has taken over the middle of it and the tip of it. And we get the biggest earthquake on the back left side of this thing. And then next to it, you got this. Out at the tip of this 5-sided star fort on the left side or the west side or the south side, depending on which way you look at it. It's south side, technically. And on the north side in St. Louis, they're building the Geospatial Mapping Agency in the middle of the other one, right here. So why did they have them? Why did they build them? Why are we getting earthquakes next to them? And why did everybody miss it in the world? Everybody in the world missed that, and I had to find it on my own. Who could build something 350 miles long in the shape of a 5-sided bastion fort shape? Nobody. Or ancient history, this gets into some weird stuff. But we got an earthquake there. So on the side of where we have the earthquake, it's the New Madrid seismic zone, but you got this weird stuff that's out here that is really, really, something worth looking into. Now let's carry on now that I've blown your mind on the weird stuff. Speaking of weird stuff, let's go down into Louisiana and go look at this. Edgefield, Louisiana. I do recall hearing the name Edgefield before. Do you guys remember what happened down here in Louisiana a long time ago? This is many years ago. There's a huge explosion from an underground ammo depot in this general area that I'm getting ready to show you. But this earthquake now is not next to where the blast happened. I just have to bring it up that it's in the area and it's right next to it. But look what's here. Do you see all these rectangles on the ground? Now, I'm not talking about the crops. I'm talking about the white-colored or gray-colored rectangles. Every single rectangle and square that's on the ground that looks like that is a drill point where we have oil and gas wells, mainly for fracking in this case. They are getting oil out of the ground. You'll find jacks and pumps as well, not just the tanks and the center apparatus where they've drilled in. But there it is. This is a large oil and gas pumping operation down here in Louisiana. Tanks, pumps, jacks, pipelines connect between them. And you see how big it is. It goes on and on and on. All of these are drill points. These are not houses. These are not clear cuts for forest or anything. Everyone's either current operational drill point or one that was already tapped. Then we start getting into sub-drill points where they have like extra pads put in between the big pads. It's a huge operation there. You get the picture of what I'm talking about. So this whole thing where all these white specks are drill points, then the white specks sort of stop or, well, putter out a little bit, and then they pick back up over here with more. Where they're really small, you have to zoom in pretty close to see them. So I'll just say it, this whole area is drilled to you know what, and we'll turn on the borders and labels to see. We go over to Texas, and it doesn't stop. It just goes right across the border. But Louisiana's done its share. Look at it, man. It's just tens of thousands of drill points just right across this area alone. Take a look at it. And Texas is no better. Texas goes into the millions of drill points. Now, there is something else here just to the north, right up here next to Shreveport, and see where it says Nacogdoches. This is where our NEXRAD radar was located before it got destroyed. They moved it slightly, but once you get up to the north, look how many drill points there are. It's like what I would call insane overdrive. That's a huge oil patch just right there. But you see how many there are. Now, this is Barksdale Air Force Base with its bunkers. And the bunkers are to store military weaponry. So we're next to bunkers, but we're far enough away. I wouldn't say it's directly related. I'd have to bring it up. It's right next to it. All these drill points kind of tell us that's what's at the location. That's what's the cause of the earthquake striking there. Just like up in Illinois, right next to drill points as opposed to something else. Over to the east, military base. Up to the north, Craton earthquake only. Nothing of any significance there. So we have a mix of natural, unnatural, but all caused by a wave going across the plate that's fully natural, coming from a world away. Now, we're not done yet. We go over to Oklahoma. We go down to Texas. Oklahoma started to break out with small earthquakes again, and guess what's here at Oklahoma? One guess. Something like I just showed you down in Louisiana. Drill points. Well, it's not even a guess. I'm telling you. Drill points are at this location. I'm going to prove that to you. We'll go put them in and look them up. We're going to go all the way over to the West Coast. We're going to go to Utah and look up Utah soon. Since everybody felt that up in the Salt Lake City area, I'd say it may even have been a bigger earthquake up in Utah, but check it out. Look at that. More drill points just like the others. And this one, you can see the shadow of the jack of the pump there. All right, so huge oil pumping operation here. When you start to see how big it is, let me back it out. Just like down in Louisiana, those rectangles and squares that are along the road are all different drill points. Right? You get the idea. It's a huge set of drill points. So the wave is seeking out these locations as opposed to going somewhere else naturally. Could go to the volcanoes down in Texas. Could go over to the volcano down in Arkansas. But in this case, it's following and going to the edge of the drill points. Now, these others are just like what I just showed you, the 1.4 I just showed you, but the 1.6, 0.9, 1.6, 2.2, those are all at drill points. You don't have to take my word for it. You can go look them up if you need to verify it, but I've already looked these all up 1,000 times. I've been doing this for 15 years. Here to tell you that that's what's at the locations. So in the interest of time, we're just going to pull the biggest earthquake from the middle of the bunch here over in Texas and just kind of scroll around to show you what's nearby. So the biggest of the bunch, 3.2 to 3.5. Notice how they have it at Whites City, New Mexico. But look how far inside of the Texas border we are here. You see? Hold on. There. So the star is where the earthquake is. They're saying it's in New Mexico. So the average Joe who checks the USGS feed doesn't associate Texas with earthquakes. Let's go put it in and show you what's there. There's a reason why they would want to try and sleight of hand you away from Texas on this. Remember what I told you about the rectangular pads up in Oklahoma and over in Louisiana? So as we zoom in, you'll see there's more here. And these are lined with black rubber or plastic. And that's designed to catch water, a water catchment, that they then use the fresh water they catch to inject down into the ground to do fracking here. So they collect fresh water and break it down to the ground. And there's so many drill points. It kind of looks like from this altitude, you might not even know what I'm showing you here. But when we're going across here, we're looking at millions of drill points. And I'm not exaggerating. That's exactly what all these are. Tanks, pumps, Jackson pipelines connecting between all the spots. And we'll just go back up to it. But do you get the idea of how many there are? It's a lot. And I'm not dissing oil and gas. I'm just saying that the earthquakes are striking next to where we've drilled the hell out of the plate right along the edge of the North American craton. Look at Texas. Look where it goes. The edge of the craton. Down through Texas, and it makes a bend, doesn't it? It goes back up to Oklahoma. And then over to the east, it goes to the New Madrid seismic zone. Then it goes down to the south, down through the southern states, through Alabama and Mississippi, and up the east coast. So remember that shape, because the earthquakes are following that, the edge of the craton. And the reason the earthquakes are following the edge of the craton is there's a wave that's going across the edge of the craton, and it's dropping off earthquakes all the way along the way. You could trace it back up to the Pacific Northwest. Now, let's go look up the 4.6 in Evanston, Wyoming, it says, eh? Well, look where we are. We're several miles inside of the border of Utah, aren't we? Look at it. That's where the star is, where the earthquake is from the USGS. Well inside of Utah. They have it listed as Wyoming. I wonder why. Let's go look it up and see what's there. Took me a minute of scouring up here to even find it, but there's oil pumping operations here. I'm going to just ruin it for you before we even get there. Earthquake epicenter is right there, and turn on my places. Look what we've got. Fracking on one side, fracking on the other. This is a matter of 20 miles. Now, I look 6 to 10 miles normally, and I have not looked at the Wyoming or Utah previous drill points. These are the current ones that are on the surface that we can see visibly. And just like what I showed you down in Texas, just like what I showed you in Louisiana or in Illinois, these are all drill points. And the pads, and here, again, look at the size of the operation. It goes across over into Wyoming, the drill points. So zooming in, I'll just show you a few examples. We don't want to waste too much time showing tanks and pumps and jacks. You're welcome to go see how big it is, but it spans from here down south in Utah, up here into the mountains, and then picks back up on the other side of the mountains up here with crazy, insane overdrive drilling again, like what I showed you in the other spots. Do you see all these on the ground here? This is to the north. So it picks up on the other side of the mountain. It pretty much goes up the mountain peak, but once you get on this side, it looks like desert. You have to zoom in real close to see that it's not. I mean, it is still desert, but they've come in and done thousands of pads that look like they're part of the natural landscape. That's how many there are. So we go back down this way, and we go back over, and that's where our earthquake is. Now, that's where the fracking operation here starts. Again, it goes all the way across here up into Wyoming this way. And over here into Utah, look what we've got on this side. More of what I just showed you, but instead of green tanks, they're white. And I don't know what the color coding, it could just very well be they're trying to hide. Like, they'll say, oh, we do them green just so they don't, so people don't get offended by seeing them. All right, you get the idea. Tanks, pumps, jacks, and pipelines connecting between this operation as well. So in between the two, I would venture a guess there were either exploratory drill points or actually an oil pumping operation that was here that has since been moved. Because check it out. I mean, we've got the pads, we've got the spots, we've even got people that live out here for some reason. So I would think that there were drill points here that are previously maybe 1970s, 1960s, and I'd have to go back in historical records to get it. But we're certainly close enough. Again, we're sandwiched between two large fracking operations. That's why the earthquake struck there, instead of along the Wasatch Fault or any of the others going down to the south or up to the north. The wave sought out a path of least resistance. And for those of you who don't know, all of this down here, see where it says the Uinta and Ouray Reservation? From this level, you can't even see it. Let me zoom in and show it to you. Now maybe you'll be able to see it. Do you see all these? These are all drill points as well for oil and gas. They just lay the pipeline out at the surface so that if there's any breaks or that they need to move anything, they don't have to do any digging. They can see anything that breaks on the surface. But look at it. Tanks, pumps, jacks, and pipelines that go on for hundreds of square miles, all the way out, over the hills, through the woods, even through the river valleys here. Do you see it? Down along the river. And up the other side. Oil and gas. An insane amount. So all of this whole thing here is drilled, and then it stops at the mountain range foot and picks back up on the other side and goes all the way up here. So all of this, you could arguably say, is one big
huge pumping operation that's just separated by some mountain peaks. And there may very well be drill points in the mountains that I'm just not seeing or don't know about. I wouldn't put it past them. Okay, so that's where our earthquake is here. So that's a significant earthquake, right? Mid-range 4, just like the one that struck over here. The USGS has it at 3.8. The Europeans said it was a 4.6, the same size as what's over here right now. So we're on the edge of the craton. One more time, let's turn the craton diagram on. Look at Utah. Right? Deformed craton, purple part. Deformed craton, purple part down south, up east, all of them getting hit as the edge shifts. But the edge is shifting because there's something going across it. It's not one earthquake causing the other, guys. It's not that a 6 up here caused a 4.9 down south. It's that the 6 and the 4.9 were both caused by a wave that went across the whole plate now and hit every single spot we were looking at down to a T. Here are the 0.0 and greater quakes showing all the earthquakes, 0 and greater. And there's a line of earthquakes that goes over to where we were looking over in South Carolina. There's a line of earthquakes that comes from the Pacific Northwest. Let's turn off all the numbers here really quick. And just look at the path that the earthquakes took over the past few days. Let's turn down the ring so you can see it. There we go. So you can see it. There's a line of earthquakes that comes out of California and follows this arrow. The reason we have an arrow there is because in the past we observed that earthquakes come out of California and go that way. Now they're all heading towards the edge of the craton, which has now shifted perfectly. And the arrows, we don't move the arrows, guys. The arrows stay on there perfectly. So you'll notice the earthquake in Illinois, perfectly on the arrows, or right next to it. And then a spread like an avenue going around the outside edge of the craton, all the way up to the northeast where we're again on the arrow. Out west, same thing, right next to our arrow coming in from the south. And then up here, you'll notice there's not anything right now across Idaho, but there is activity out where the arrows are pointing. Now, I would look in the middle of here for a new break to happen in Idaho. And I would look in here in between these two lines of earthquakes, which is Long Valley Caldera, right where our middle arrow is. It's open. There's nothing there. There's not even a 0 point anything has struck there in the last 2 days. It should be filled in with a significant sized earthquake in the middle here and on the north side in Idaho. So 2 different spots should move next. Let's talk about the earthquakes on the West Coast now. Go quickly look them up. So out here on the West Coast, a significant line of earthquakes, all small, but if you go look it up, you'll see we're following the San Andreas creeping section, also the Hayward Fault, once we get into the Bay Area. But once we get down here to the south, look at that. We go out to where? San Luis Obispo. See where it says Cambria? Let's just go pull the coordinates and go look and see where we go. Because this is so close to where we were watching. I just want to see how far we are. If it's not San Luis Obispo, it's very close to it. Close enough that it would raise my eyebrows. I wonder why we're striking here as opposed to directly at San Luis. We got a quarry there. Hold on. San Simeon right there. It's an airstrip here on the north side, but it doesn't look like it's anything significant. Maybe there's something else here nearby that I don't know about here. What's going on with the quarry out here? That's pretty... Oh, they're taking out a mountaintop there, are they? Well, maybe they're looking for something else. Maybe they got geopolymer coming out of here. Some kind of ancient fort that's out there. That's speculation on my part. Let's go see what's along the coast. It could just be straight up an earthquake striking along the coast, going down to the south, spreading as we would expect. Wait, what's going on there? What's going on here? That's interesting. Hey, don't see that. What caused this? Can't say a landslide. Where's the landslide from? Where'd it go? Huh. Interesting. I wonder what that... Maybe something like this was over here. And they scraped this one out. But they haven't taken this one yet. This says, to me, this says ancient civilization stuff. I know. There's going to be some people who raise their eyebrows at that. But come on. Can you blame me at this point? What else do we have going on out here? Looks like we got some mining that was done a while ago. Look at that, tailing piles here. Well, where there are tailing piles, there's usually some kind of mine or closed mine. Tailing pile up here and a lake right here. The lake might be where they dug out. There's no way to ever know, though. Look at that, another huge tailing pile there. That's not landslide. Those are tailing piles. Okay, well, I don't have any marked mines here, but that doesn't mean jack squat in this day and age. Okay, well, we may be next to a mining location. If that's the case, then... Wait, what do we got? Power generation going on up here. What? We got solar panels on the mountaintop there? All right, well, it's small enough I wouldn't directly blame the power generation. Now, some people have raised the interest of this out here off the coast. Now, I don't know what to make of that. We could go back in historical imagery, and it's not there. We've talked about this before. It just picks up right here. This looks like a bathymetric error of some kind. I could be wrong. It might not be. I mean, look out here. You see how there's like a grid-like shape there. I mean, it may very well be that there is something there, but I don't trust that right there. Again, we could go back in historical imagery and just see what they show. Historical imagery, just nothing. So to me, that looks like an error. But you know what's not an error are the volcanoes out here off the coast. So in case you didn't know, there's a whole bunch of volcanoes off the coast here. And I'll get the mileage for you so you can see how close we are. I mean, it's not like they're terribly far. 100 miles off the coast are multiple volcanoes. Okay, but I'm not saying it's related to the volcanoes, just so everybody's aware. We're far enough away from the volcanoes that I wouldn't think they're directly related. Okay, so that earthquake there, down there along, it appears to be natural, going around the outside edge of where we're looking. And this means then we need to watch the LA basin. So think of it like this. Normally, a river of seismic energy comes down the San Andreas, and when it gets here, it goes east, across the valley, following the drill points over towards eastern California. But in this case, it's going around the outside edge of where we would normally look for it to stop and go over, and it's going down to the south. So this means following the arrow to the south, area to the south, we would watch to the south. Okay, so that being said, I don't know what magnitude we would forecast on this. It would be in the 4 range. Just looking at the current earthquakes that are all around it. We got 4 on the north side, 4 on the south side, 4 on the east side. Take a look at it. It's like a triangle of 4s. And where all 3 sets of 4s, where their rings overlap, well, that puts us right back to where I have my warning going for a large earthquake to strike, which is out here by Long Valley Caldera, Yuba Hibi Craters, Long Valley, southeast of Lake Tahoe. Let me show it to you here on Google Earth. Here's Lake Tahoe. Yuba Hibi Craters is down here, and we're going to look right in here. So this is a supervolcano in case you didn't know. I'm sorry, right here. Long Valley Caldera is a supervolcano. Hold on one second. I feel a sneeze coming on. Uh-oh. Oh, man. 'Tis the season to be a sneezing. Oh, by the way, we got 8 to 10 inches of snow coming in here to the St. Louis, Missouri area. And I know you guys are about to get hit down south with major weather. We're not here to talk about weather. But there is something we do need to bring up on this, that extreme low pressure systems tend to get hit with small earthquake activity when they go across plates and when along plate boundaries. Large low pressure systems, tropical systems and greater, or even smaller, even just huge low pressure systems, can get earthquake activity below them. Electromagnetically induced. Simply put, the storm is scuffing its feet across the carpet of the atmosphere, the huge amount of movement and low pressure above, and then down below it in the plate, an earthquake is precipitated as the low frequency in the plate is drawn up towards the storms above. It's crazy. I'll give you an example. There was a hurricane that hit Southern California a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. You remember? It was like a Category 1 or Category 2 hurricane came up through California from the south, and it went right over the LA area. The eye of the hurricane passed over your NEXRAD radar directly. The very center of the eye of the hurricane went directly over the NEXRAD radar. And as the center of the eye passed over the NEXRAD radar, a 5.0 earthquake was precipitated in the mountain directly below where the radar stands. So at the foot of the mountain where the radar stands, a 5 struck down below it as the hurricane was going across it, electromagnetically induced. We see that happen also up in Washington, next to the very low frequency transmitter for the U.S. Navy at Oso, Washington. And we saw small earthquakes and somewhat significant sized earthquakes, 2s, 3s, striking next to the VLF transmitter. So, but it's Mother Nature's wave down on the plate that's coming up to meet those areas. So it's not like they're causing the earthquake, but it's just like a weak point, like a volcano, that there's cracks in the plate. But in this case, it's an electromagnetic crack in the plate. All right, let's recap. So up here next to drill points at the Utah border with Wyoming, listed as it's in Wyoming, 4-point-something earthquake shook up the area and people felt it in Salt Lake City. Down south, 4.2 earthquake striking next to Salton Sea. And when we looked that up, again, well, we didn't look this particular earthquake up. We looked up the 4.9, Indio, California. There are things here nearby, but we're on a fault. So when the Elsinore, the San Jacinto, the San Andreas, when those faults start moving, again, we're on the San Andreas going into the Imperial Fault. It would have to be a real big facility to get my attention. Like, is there a huge power plant here? Is there a large military base here? Are there drill points that are here? The question, right? And the answer is yes, yes, and yes. And there's large power generation going on nearby here. They're generating a tremendous amount of power. We also have the U.S. Marine base nearby. We also have a volcanic system nearby. But we're on a fault. So why would the earthquake strike there? It's a 4-on-1 reason. Man-made punch points in the plate, drill points. We also have man-made power generation going on at the surface. We have military communication systems using VLF, ULF, ELF. And then we have Mother Nature's actual fault zone that's going through the area. The volcanism and the breakpoints in the plate prove that it's already predisposed to be weak. Most people don't know about the volcanoes down here in Southern California. Salton Buttes are volcanoes. They've tapped into them to get steam. Here are geothermal turbines where they're generating a huge amount of electricity. And the Pinto-Salton Basin, this is a huge alluvium of ancient volcanoes out in the desert. And like I said, they're generating a lot of power. These are all solar panels. Look at this. Just a huge amount of power being generated right there alone. And look how far it goes. This is all power generation just from that location itself. The military base next to it, which is the Marine base, is just added fuel to the fire. So if I was leaning towards what caused the earthquake, it's a spread of seismic activity that's caused by a seismic wave in the plate. And the reason it's seeking these points out is because they are weak points. Pretty simple, isn't it? And then once you figure out what's next to the spot, all those drill points going across the plate that I just showed you. And the military base over on the East Coast, over in South Carolina. Now, this doesn't count what else is going on across the planet, because you can also check off Kamchatka, Russia from your list. If you were keeping track of areas that we warned, here we are, a 6.2 earthquake struck up in Kamchatka. I will get this open from the USGS so we can see their station magnitude list on this. There we are, Russia. Hold on, another sneeze cough coming in. Dang. All right, there it is. Sorry. We're live. We're live on Twitch. I'm not going to edit this out either. If you're listening now and you're on Twitch, I'm sorry. If you watch this back on YouTube, I'm even more sorry because I'm not going to edit it out. You're listening to me live talk and give an update over on Twitch. In case you want to, you can always come over and watch it on Twitch. It's free to watch. There are some commercials, though. I'll give them that. There's a fair amount of commercials. I can't do anything about that either. They don't allow me to choose the amount of commercials. So if you're just trying to watch for free on Twitch, you're going to get hit with a lot of commercials. If you're logged in, it's less. Let's put the coordinates in all the way overseas. Go over to Kamchatka, Russia. Go see what's there. We're also going to look at the station list, see if there's anything worth mentioning there. Now, did you guys hear about Kamchatka getting hit with that huge snowstorm? Kamchatka got a massive snowstorm. Then people started cranking out fake AI video and pictures where whole skyscrapers were buried. Now, it was like 15 feet of snow, 15 to 20 feet of snow, huge amount of snow that actually fell. But people, of course, they can't help themselves, so they came in and created fake AI showing entire skyscrapers covered, hundreds of feet high. Now, they didn't get that much snow, but 20 feet is enough to bury your car so far down that it looks like it's a mile away. Look where we are, though. We're on the edge of several volcanoes. I have not checked the Volcanic Ash Advisory Center. We're also on the plate boundaries. See this? It goes down, 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 down into the depths of the ocean. This goes down 24,000 feet deep down here. Right up here, it's more like 500 feet deep. So we're at the top of a break that goes down at an angle down below the plate. And let me show it to you on the USGS plate boundary map here over in the West Pacific. 6.2 earthquake, I'll mark it in blue. There it is, clicked. And it struck at the top of the plate boundary, if you want to think of it like that, even though it goes down very far, hundreds of miles down into the plate. Now, why did it strike there? Well, we were looking for this to happen. Same reason that a same-sized earthquake, 6.1 to 6.5, struck on the Volcano Islands next to Nikko Volcano, which is a undersea mount volcano that's the size of Mount Everest. Or I'm sorry, the size of Mount St. Helens. Mount Everest. Wake up, dude. Sorry, little mistake there. But let's go up to the north again one more time and go see what we're talking about when it comes to magnitudes on this 6.2. Because I wonder, we're looking for something like an upper 6 to low 7 to strike here. And instead, we get a 6.2. I just wonder where the USGS is coming to their conclusion on that. Look, hey, check it out. They're telling us no stations contributed to their conclusion. Okay. Well, let's go down the list and see what all the stations show. And we're going to toss out the high end. We'll toss out the low end, and that'll tell us more like what really hit. High end, it looks like it goes 6.4, 6.5. And low end is 5.9 to 6.0, 5.7 to 6.0, 6.3, 6.1, 6.2. Again, we toss out the high end and toss out the low end. 6.4 looks like the highest we're going, 6.5. Okay, so toss out the 6.3, 6.4, 6.5. Toss out the 5.7, 5.8, 5.9, and 6. And what does that leave us with? 6.1 to 6.2 earthquake. That's most likely what struck, just by looking at all the stations, reducing it down to that level of simplicity, to just do an average between the stations somewhat, and by just tossing out the high end and low end. And there it is. So it's a mid-range 6, just like the 6 down to the south. Or, I'm sorry, low end 6, 6.2. On the north side, 6.1 to 6.2 on the south side. But this one is next to a volcano that hasn't erupted in a very, very long time. There's one known eruption on Nikko from 1979, an underwater eruption. So keep an eye out for volcanoes on the Izu Ridge to suddenly show back up on the list. Like if we see Iwo Jima or Nishinoshima or any of those show up, then that's a sign that the ridge is moving. Let's go over to the west and talk about Europe really quick. Also Asia. So China got hit, or at least at the border of China. Where are we exactly on this? The Myanmar-India border region. Here's China on the north side. Myanmar, India is right there. Okay. Myanmar, India, China border region along the plate boundary. Let's get the USGS plate boundary map open in China. See? Right there. Now you see which way the red line goes. It goes over to the west, obviously. And that's the edge of the Indo-Australian plate. India, Australia, Indo-Australian plate. Make a note of this shape because look at the earthquakes now over the last 2 days. The exact outside edge of the Indo-Australian plate has moved on a 5 to mid-range 5 level in the last 2 days. USGS map just showing us 1 day here, but really it's the last 2 days. Fives, 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 all the way around, even out into the mid-Indian Ocean. All this moving on a 5 basis. Now, going out over to the west, 4s have started to spread, going over as far west as Ethiopia, Israel, up into Turkey over the past few days. Rare earthquake activity. Let's get it all on the screen here. Dead Sea Israel is now off the feed, but it was on there from yesterday, 4.6. And check it out. Iran, Turkey, South Italy, all the same sized earthquakes within a hair of a point of each other in the last couple days. What does it mean? It means the whole area from down south up to the northwest has shifted on a 4-point-something basis in the last 3 days. Or, simply put, Saudi Arabia, all the way around it, going up into Turkey, has all moved in the last couple days, all on the same basis within a point of each other, a hair of a point of each other, a tenth of a point of each other. And when something like that moves, the thing next to it moves, wherever we are on the planet. And look what moved, and look at the size. Up here to the north, same size going out to Iceland, 4.5 striking dead in the middle of Iceland. 4.5 coming out of Europe, out of Turkey. 4.4 down south. Go back 2 days. Another 4.1 to 4.4. They downgraded it. Struck next to Bosnia. So it's all the same sized earthquakes going across the plate, guys. And it looks like we're going to the next step up in Europe in the next few days. Think of it like this. If this was a rainstorm and it's dropping a bunch of rain on a river, and look which way, or 2 rivers, and both rivers come together over back here. We're going to look for everything here to go over to the west and strike here next, as it then tries to make its way out to the Azores, Iceland, Svalbard, the North Pole. So, mid-range 5s now, if you take all this and add it up, it equals about a 6. So we're going to see something like a new 6 in South Europe, in Greece. I would watch the Aegean Sea, the center where these rings overlap. Let's just go ahead and watch the center Aegean. 200 miles in each direction for 6.0 level activity. The first 6 there in months. Then we watch for 6.0 level activity, very rare, to strike out by the North Pole or the Arctic Circle. I would also look for a 5 at the Azores, but I don't think anybody cares. If it strikes out in the ocean, nobody will care. If it strikes on land, of course, that'll matter to the people there. Now look at the rest of the Mid-Atlantic Ridge. South Sandwich Islands, X marks the spot, hit right on the money, 5.2. And out here on both sides of our X's, equidistantly spaced. And they're all the same sized earthquakes. 5.2, 5.2 down in the south, 5.2 in the middle, 5.1 to 5.2 to struck today. And we're going to expect that to carry on between our X's. I would also expect the X's to get hit. So it's going to be pretty busy. 2 sets of things going on between our X's and at the X's, all with the same sized earthquakes. So let's just put it in another round of 5.2s. And I'm basing that on the 5.2s that already hit. If anything more comes in, don't fault me. No, knock on wood. No pun intended. On the fault joke there. South America, Central America, what are we going to look for? Well, you have to trace your stuff back to here. And over here, 6.0 level activity struck a day and a half ago. 6.0 to 6.1, striking next to New Caledonia. And we have deep earthquakes down below the Indo-Australian plate boundary. Let's get the USGS map open here. Whoops. There we go. And Indo-Australian plate boundary. The edge right here, Fiji and Tonga. Down below here, we have a bunch of deep earthquakes that are raised high off the planet for easy identification purposes. Think of it like this. A wave is coming up from down below, and it's spreading in all directions, up, out, and away. And then, when the wave is spreading up, out, and away from down below, it finds these cracks in the plate that are the plate boundaries that go all the way down to the underside of the plate. Think of these red lines like cracks in the plate, but these are where 2 plates meet. And this goes all the way from the surface, all the way down to the bottom of the plate. So at the bottom of the plate, there's a wave vibrating up out of the magma. And it finds these to come up through. As opposed to brute force coming up through the center of the plate, it's coming up along the edges of the plate, where they meet. And that's where the seismic wave comes up and drops off earthquakes along the way as it spreads up, out, and away in a path of least resistance. So something's coming up from down below here. It's going down through New Zealand. It's going over to the west. And it goes over to the east and spreads equally to our 2 fracture zones on either side of the Nazca and Cocos plates. And that's exactly what we're going to look for in the next couple days, because that hasn't happened yet. We're looking for this to happen now, is for on the north side where the arrow is, next to Leviathan there, or to the west of the Galapagos, and to the south. Now you see both arrows. Connecting between them is a north-south facing fracture zone. It looks like a lightning bolt in there. See our stair step that goes down to the south? Let's go back to the USGS map and show it to you this way. I have two arrows, one going to the north, one going to the south. We're going to expect up here and down here to get hit. Then we're going to expect the middle over here, as the wave is coming in, goes up, comes down to the middle, and then we'll expect the middle between the middles to get hit. So that would be Peru and Chile, also Colombia and South Chile, also out here next to south of Rapa Nui and west of Galapagos. That's like 5 different things we're going to look for to happen here. So 2 earthquakes out here, 2 earthquakes here, and then 1 in the middle. And we're talking 6.0 level activity should be coming into the one in the middle, and 5 should be spreading out on all sides. It's already happening. I mean, the 5s are spreading out in the other direction out across the planet. On the opposite side, this way, I just got done talking about it. 5s and a 6, all the way over. And so we're going to expect the same thing to happen over this way. Now, if it goes any larger, I'll get back on at a moment's notice and do an update and bring you up to speed on that. Let's talk about the Caribbean and Central America. Do you see where all these rings overlap? So what do we got? A 4.7, a 5.0, a 4.0, and a 4.0. If we add all these together, it equals 5.1 basically. So we will watch for a new 5.1 to strike at Guatemala, down at the south border with Mexico. Over on the west coast of the U.S., what are we going to look for there? Now that everything's hit across the board in the U.S., well, let's get a new forecast out for the west coast of the U.S. So I'm watching at Long Valley Caldera. Simply put, look where all 3 sets of rings overlap. I'll look for a 6 to strike here at the Nevada border with California in the next week. 7 days from now, basically. So, I mean, we're on the 22nd. Those just take us to the end of the month, basically. So we're going to watch there for about the next week, 7 to 10 days. But 7 days, if we get to day 7 and nothing struck and it looks like it's dying out, I'll reduce it by a magnitude on day 1 of on day 7, and then day 8 we take it down by another, down to 4, and then by day 9 into day 10 it's down to 3.0, and we don't even worry about it. That only happens when I get it wrong. I have to take it down. But other than that, we watch right in the middle for a new break to happen, and that's right on the supervolcano where all 3 sets of rings overlap. It's going to go up to 6. We already have 6s coming across Volcano Islands, up at Kamchatka, 5s going into Alaska, and a 6 previously at the start of the week. Now let's go look at the whole week and show you one more time the whole week and take it up to the 5.0 level, or 4s. Here's our 4s and 5s. So it's been super busy overseas. And we're not done yet. I mean, I forgot to mention, Philippines. Philippines is due for a large earthquake in the 7.0 range in the next 5 days, not even 7. North Philippines, Central Philippines. That's the only spot that we have not seen break this past week on this past week's forecast. Now, if you want to know how to do forecasting, there is no secret on this. I have published step-by-step instructions on how to do it yourself. Nobody has any excuse anymore. Even teenagers who are not even into geophysics are able to follow the step-by-step instructions. It's kind of like putting together an IKEA cabinet. Can you follow instructions? Now, I've written them down, and I actually have it in a robo voice, read to you. And then I also have an hour-long detailed explanation on how to do forecasting if you want to know the intimate details about standing waves, very low frequency, and the whole bit. That's all on my YouTube channel, free to watch and free to listen to and blah, blah, blah. Now, you know what you can do? You can pay attention to the earthquakes. And if you watched my update from a few days ago over on YouTube, well, you knew to watch for all these locations. South Carolina, Vermont, New Hampshire border region. You knew to look for a 7 or something like a 7, a mid-range 6 to strike up in Kamchatka, and you know to watch in Philippines right now. You also now know to watch at the California-Nevada border. This should remove some of the fear of earthquakes. Now that you know they're not random, Earthquakes are not random. There's a wave that's dropping off earthquakes along the way as it spreads. Now that you know that something's coming from somewhere and it's going somewhere, and we know where it's coming from, down below the plate where the deep earthquakes are showing it, and then we know where it's spreading to, out and away from where the deep earthquakes are. We can then, like a river or a flood, forecast for that spread to take place over the course of a week or so. Usually it's 7 to 10 days is what it takes for this seismic wave to go around the planet. Sometimes, if it's a big push coming up from down below, it can happen in days. This gets us into what's causing the deep earthquakes. Well, how can something break down below the plate where there's nothing to break? These aren't tremors, these are earthquakes, but they're down in the magma. What's causing earthquakes at the underside of the plate? I propose there's a wave coming up from the core of the earth that's low frequency. A low frequency wave is coming up from the core of the earth, electrical in nature, like lightning. And it comes in and it hits the underside of the plate and then goes up into the plate. And when the wave goes up into the plate, it then spreads out and it follows a path of least resistance up towards the surface. And as the wave is hitting the underside of the plate, we get deep earthquakes, letting us know that something's coming up. It's like a sign that there's a wave coming up. So deep earthquakes first. And that's where our letter Ds are. We have letter Ds where we expect deep earthquakes. And the deep earthquakes are raised high off the planet, so you can see where they are. And notice, all of our Ds have deep earthquakes directly in the middle of them. It's a forecast area point. So you can forecast where deep earthquakes are going to take place. And the way you forecast where deep earthquakes are taking place is where you look at past deep earthquakes to see where they happen. And it turns out there's a weak point at these spots, weak points, where this seismic wave, as I call it, comes up. When you see deep earthquakes, it's a warning sign or of a pressure gauge letting you know that something's coming up. Once it comes up to the surface, or tries to, and when it gets to the surface, the wave breaks like a wave out of the ocean in the magma, crashing against the shores where the wave's potential is realized. You know, an ocean wave contains a lot of energy, but it's not realized until it crashes into something. So in this case, the wave, electrical in nature, coming up out of the core, crams or smashes into the underside of the plate, causing deep earthquakes. Then up at the surface, shallower, larger earthquakes start to take place thousands of miles away as the wave spreads like a very low frequency wave, dropping off earthquakes hundreds to thousands of miles apart, but they're all about the same size. So in this case, a wave equal to 6.1 and 6.2 at its peak and 5.5 at its trough or its bottom has spread from Philippines, across the volcano islands, up to Japan, across over to Kamchatka, and over to Alaska, all in the last 2 days. This isn't me cherry-picking earthquakes. This is everything 5.3 and greater. Here's 5.0 and greater. All it does is add in more steps to the wave, equidistantly spaced, following these red lines, like an uneven tank is containing an even-spaced wave. So an evenly spaced standing wave is dropping off earthquakes evenly spaced across an uneven wave tank that's containing the wave. There it is. So that explains it. There's a wave that's spreading out in all directions. And where is it spreading out from? It's coming from where the deep earthquakes are letting us know the wave's coming up. It's so simple. The deep earthquakes let us know there's something coming up. What's coming up? A very low frequency wave. It's coming up from the core, vibrating like a bass drum. Then it spreads out, trying to reach equilibrium. And it spreads out following these red lines, just like these are wave guides in your microwave, guiding the microwave to your food. But in this case, it's guiding the very low frequency wave across a huge distance out and away from where it's coming up. Now, once we get into a plate, the wave gets absorbed along for instance, the west coast of the U.S., Laurentia, or the San Andreas in many cases, but just along through here, the wave gets absorbed, transferred over to the edge of the North American craton. And the wave is guided along the edge of the craton. And here's the earthquakes for the last week to prove that. Here's everything 0.0 and greater from the USGS over the last 7 days, proving that the wave is coming in from the west, going down through Texas and up the East Coast. It does it every week this way. And it drops off similarly spaced earthquakes along the way. Look at that, going across the southern edge of the craton. spaced out perfectly along the edge, southern edge. All 2s, for instance. Well, those 2s go back to where the 3s are, and the 3s go back to where the 4s are, and the 4s go back to where the 5s are, and the 5s go back to where the 6s are. Now, this was all said to be random when I showed professionals back in 2011, 2012, 2013, 2014, 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, 21, 22, 23, 24. They said it was random over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. Because they didn't want to admit that there's something going across the plates. Because if you know something's going across the plates, you have to figure out what it is. It's not earthquakes going across the plate on their own. There's some other force that's going across the plate, dropping off the earthquakes along the way. Now that you understand that, that removes the fear of random earthquakes, doesn't it? And it replaces it with, oh, wow, we need to watch this wave going from region to region. Well, guess who's trying to stop you from watching that wave? And guess who's denying that wave exists? The professionals, the USGS, and all the eggheads. They all said it was all random. All this was random, they said. And they're trying to maintain that because they look like idiots. Because I'm a high school graduate. I had to find this all on my own. I had to figure out why earthquakes are going across from region to region. You know how it started? I was making videos on earthquakes, and I'd make a video on an earthquake that happened here, a deep earthquake, and then the next day I'm talking about a shallower, larger earthquake next to it, and I got to make a video on it. And I started to notice, I'm like, wow, there's like a progression on this. When I showed it, and I said, hey guys, looks like there's a progression on this coming up from down below, people accused me of faking the earthquakes. The professionals and all sorts of people showed up, top people in the industry. So it wasn't just like random trolls. It was like the director of the Pacific Northwest Seismic Network. They were accusing me of faking and frauding earthquakes, cherry-picking earthquakes to try and make it look like there was a spread going across the plates. And I said, what? Like, I'm not faking earthquakes. Are you kidding me? And I went live at that point to show everybody. And that's where we are now it's been almost 15 years of me showing you guys. And my last forecast this past week for Southern California to be on watch for a 4.9 to 5.0 earthquake, and then the 4.9 hits, and then to tell South Carolina to watch, and the New Madrid seismic zone to watch, and the Northeast up at the Vermont-New Hampshire border to watch. Guess what happened this week? When this earthquake struck, this rare earthquake at the oil pumping operations, my first felt earthquake ever, 4.0 range, 4.6 according to the Europeans, USGS 3.8, really weird. The local media here came on. NBC News came on, CBS News, and they said earthquakes happen here all the time. And they went out on a limb and said that earthquakes can't be predicted or forecast. They said predicted, but they interchange that word. Prediction is for horse races and presidential elections. But prediction is for the lottery, right? Like you have to predict the right numbers down to the exact point. But for forecasting, you're trying to get it down to a region. They came out and denied that they knew that earthquakes could be coming. They poo-pooed it, and that's this week. So they're still in denial about the spread that's going across the plate, that you can see it coming your way. They said I got lucky this week. The answer on me getting all 5 of these locations right, professionals already weighed in. They said it on the news. So, yeah, lucky, right? Yeah, me, Mr. Luck. Oh, man. You know what? You guys should never press your luck, though. So I would urge you to have an earthquake plan and to watch the seismic activity go from point to point. Don't wait for professionals to come on and tell you that this is happening. I'm showing you. You don't need a professional to tell you now. I've showed you, and I showed them. They don't want to admit that they were wrong, though, so they're going to just ignore it, I guess. But that's foolish on their part. Now, you shouldn't be a fool. You should pay attention to this like you would pay attention to the weather coming your way. I mean, would you listen to a meteorologist if they told you not to watch the earthquakes, or I'm sorry, not to watch the weather on the West Coast, and that it wasn't related to the weather that comes into the Midwest? You know, we got the big winter storm coming in, right? What if somebody got on and told you, the storm out off the West Coast has nothing to do with and you'd be like, no, we can watch it come our way. What are you talking about? And then they call you a fraud and say that you're picking up the weather that you want to pick up only and that there's no relation. That's what they're doing with the earthquakes. But we wouldn't listen to a person if they said that about the weather, right? Because we can see it. Well, in this case, you can see it too. So don't be a fool. Pay attention to the earthquakes coming your way, like a flood. And don't ignore it. Also, have an emergency kit. You should need to have an emergency kit for all sorts of stuff, but it can overlap. Your single emergency kit can cover earthquakes, fire, flood, change of clothes, set of shoes, flashlight, battery, first aid kit, sanitation. This is all stuff you're supposed to have in your house, anyways, in your apartment. Even if you're low budget, you can go to the dollar store. As a matter of fact, if people are on low budget, you might be still on some kind of government assistance, even will pay for that. They actually cover that stuff, the Band-Aids, all the stuff. Get that and have it into a bag, ready to go. Also, some food and water, just a little bit, enough to get you through a couple days, just in case. And even if a power outage hits, you might end up using your emergency kit at some point, like I have. And you know what? It's also a good idea to have an extra set of car keys and house keys and other things like that in your emergency kit. And I found myself using the lost key thing. Yeah, I ended up using my emergency kit to get in and get a set of keys out for my last car debacle that I had. So, that being said, you need to have a plan, be prepared, have the emergency kit, and have the appropriate stuff in it for the season. It's going to be bone cold across most of the US for the next several, at least week or two. So, your emergency kit should have winter stuff already in it and ready to go. And with a 3.8 earthquake at an oil and gas well in Illinois, which they, again, I'm telling you right now, it was 4 point something. You don't feel 3.8 all the way over in Iowa like those felt reports. Thousands of felt reports as far south as my location here in St. Louis. You don't get that on the 3.8. That's a 4.6, just like the Europeans reported it. But whatever. We got oil involved. Of course they're going to downgrade it. What do you want to bet there's some state regulation that kicks in if an over a 4.0 earthquake gets reported in Illinois? And what do you want to bet if over a 4 strikes and there's oil pumping there, that they put some kind of stop on it? So keep it under 4. You know what I mean? Oh, man, that's troubling, though, that they do that. So getting back to it, we had a huge solar storm that took place, one of the bigger storms in the past 20 years, if not the biggest. Now, just a few months back, there was the aurora borealis that we all saw over the USA. It was like red and pink and green, went all the way down to Florida. We didn't get that this time on that solar storm, at least over our location in Missouri. So there wasn't a huge aurora borealis event with it, but there was a huge amount of strong solar wind and charged particles back to back. Usually that results within 7 days. Major earthquake activity. And usually it's just a day or two for the time from the time where the solar storm hits to the time where the energy goes down to the core of the earth. So when a solar storm hits, we have strong solar wind and charged particles that go across Earth's ionosphere. And just think of it like you're scuffing your feet across the carpet. These charged particles are scuffing their feet across the carpet of the ionosphere. And that charge builds up and causes the air to glow. Physically in the sky, you get northern lights and southern lights. But that electricity doesn't just go away. It doesn't just zap off out into space. It gets absorbed by Earth's magnetic field and taken down to ground. But ground isn't just ground like we would consider it for putting electricity into the ground here for your man-made systems. Ground is the core of the Earth. So all those charged particles feed the electroplasma at the center of the Earth. It's like a blowtorch. All the elements of the periodic chart vaporized into a vapor-like state around the core of the Earth, or in it, vibrating like a very large speaker. And in case you didn't know, plasma vibrates out very low frequency. So plasmas emit very low frequency, and very low frequency, electroplasma induced, coming up, then hits the underside of the plate. So this should remove that mystery. There is no randomness. There are no randomness events to earthquakes. They are precipitated along the plate boundaries and following the craton edges, and they will seek out, this earthquake's seismic wave will seek out weak points, whether they're volcanoes, oil and gas drill points, power stations, doesn't matter what kind, if it's a lot of power being generated by humans at the surface, and also places that are using very low frequency for military communication and even possible directed energy weapon use. Certainly communications are being affected, or at least the military bases are being struck next to where they are using low frequency systems. So it's all a bit much to take in. If you're average Joe and you're listening, just understand if anything is coming your way, I'll get back on and tell you, but there's a way for you to do this yourself if you want to know, and that's to follow the directions on my channel on the video titled How to Forecast an Earthquake. It's a very simple title on that, How to Forecast an Earthquake by Dutch Sense. We were even able to get AI to do it, guys. So there's kind of no excuse. I'll be back if you need me, and we're watching one more time. We are watching now out in California at the California-Nevada border where there's a supervolcano called Long Valley Caldera for potential 6.0 level activity in the next 7 days. And that doesn't rule out anything else. I mean, I'll be back on. I'll be doing more updates. I'm sure there's going to be more that happens. Over in the West Pacific, for instance, when we get our large earthquake activity, I'll be back on. Be safe. And remember my motto. I know it sounds cheesy, but I'll sign off with this, which is don't be scared. You need to be prepared. Peace out.